Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? It's been a busy day. Did a lot of work in the garden and then came into the kitchen and was working on the fig leaves. And now I have just enough time to come in here and pick back up on those little girl dresses. Make sure my sound's up here. Hope you can all hear me. Let's turn it around here. So when we left off, we had made our sleeves, right? Cute little sleeves. And we had already cut out and sewed the main bodice for the dress. And now we're ready to add the sleeves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my light. It's not in my way. There we go. I love these adjustable lights. I'm going to turn this dress inside out. And I'm going to show you how I do sleeves. Down a little more. There we go. Okay. So you see our sleeves are right side out. Our dress is inside out. And we are going to pin these sleeves in. And what I like to do is I like to grab the seam from the bottom of the sleeve and pair it to the bottom of the armhole. Does that make sense? And you can see that we're putting right sides together and we'll be sewing on the wrong sides, right? Does that make sense? If in doubt, always check the direction of your fabric prior to sewing. You can rip a sleeve out. It's not that hard, but it's always nice to avoid that if possible. And I think actually it'd be easier to pin it from the inside. And I think I have a little more gathering than I need. So we're gonna relax that gathering a little bit too. I've been working on this project for a while now. These are holiday gifts. So whenever you're doing holiday gifts that involve sewing, you definitely want to start early because you can see that you get busy, especially this time of the year. You don't always have as much time as you expect to have. But the great thing about sewing is you can pick it up and you can put it back down. And I have my trusty companion in here with me. Miss Meg is chilling on the floor, supervising, I guess you could say. So we're going to go ahead and do a little trim here. Just catch the seam because you can tell that I've got this just a little too much gathered because it doesn't quite come up to the edge. We can fix that quite easily. And we don't want to lose all of our gathering though, so be careful with that. I'm going to go ahead and pin this gathered edge right here. Make sure I keep some of that gathering. Guess I was a little too really into that gathering. I overdid it a little bit, but that's okay. It's very easy to snip that gathering stitch, the basting stitch, to open it up a little bit. Give us a little more fabric to work with to get the fit we want. Just be sure to do it the same way on both sides. Does that make sense? You want to be consistent. I know we don't have a whole lot of people following the little girl dress project. I think the doll dresses were more popular, but we finish our projects. Definitely have some fall chill in the air here where we're at. How about the rest of y'all? It just kind of snuck up on us. We had about the hottest summer you could imagine, and it actually lasted for quite a while. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on the garden, making sure none of the squash gets too cold, right? Always got to get your harvest in. But we have a extended growing season here. The squash seem to be quite happy. And when I think about it, the temperatures we have right now are really pretty comparable to Alaska temperatures for the summertime. So it's actually great gardening weather. A little less light. All right, that one's pinned in. And you can kind of see that you have the right sides lined up properly, right? Always check that before you start sewing. Okay, we're going to take this sleeve here and stick it in here. And we're going to line up this bottom seam to the seam at the bottom of the armhole. Oh, so I've got it facing the wrong direction. Okay, so we're going to take the non-trimmed edge, the bottom of the sleeve, and line it up with the bottom of the armhole. Pay attention. Boy, that would have been goofy looking. I would have been getting my seam ripper out. How is everybody's week going? A lot going on, right? Make sure you get out and get your vote in. Important stuff. Participate in the future of our country. With whatever vote you choose to make it count. All right, I'm going to have to release the seam on this one as well, but that's not a big deal. I just can't wait to see these little girls in these dresses with their dollies and it all matching. It's going to be cute. Of course, the little girls are cute too. I wish I had as great of an idea for the guys. Anybody got any good sewing ideas for the little guys? Thought about maybe making some football themed hats. What do you think about that idea? Now that I know how to make a hat, it seems like that has some potential to be fun. Just pin it. You're almost ready to start sewing. This Butterick pattern has been very easy to work with. Just remember that it seems to be about 2 sizes larger. I've had to cut these ones back a little bit so they fit. The first matching little girl dress, matching a doll dress that I made, the grandma told me it was a little oversized, but that's better than being too small. So if it's a little big, you can always wear it at some point, but if it's too small, it's probably going to go into the Goodwill pile, right? Almost have this pinned. I'm using a white thread. You could use black, gray, or charcoal, your choice. Let's go ahead and come over here and let's sew these sleeves in. And it's a little easier sewing the sleeves in for the little girl dresses than it is for the doll dresses, just because you have a larger opening to work with. The doll dress sleeves are a little tedious, but they are definitely doable. Just be careful not to poke yourself while you're getting that sleeve in there underneath the needle. Okay, we'll go forward and a little backward to tie it off. And then just keep rolling your sleeve forward. That. Very easy to do. And watch your fingers, don't sew yourself. I can angle this a little better for you to see. Let's see my mouse. There we go. I'm just gently feeding it. You can go faster or slower if you want, but I recommend not going too fast when you're working in a small space. Kind of at the in-between speed. And then go backwards and forward again to tie off your seam. And let's go ahead and pull these pins out so it's not so pokey. And let's cut our thread. All right, we got all of our pins. Yay. Now we're ready to sew the other side. Just keep rolling your sleeve forward as you sew, being careful not to poke yourself and not to sew yourself. My machine has not been wanting to sew over the pins very well, but I just give it a little tug on the back and it keeps it moving. And go backwards and forwards to tie off your seam. Let's go ahead and pull this out. Got my tea. I'm trying a really cool tea that I got at Sprouts. It's chicory, and it has a little cocoa and a little mint in it, and it really does taste like coffee with mint. It's quite delicious. Okay, getting these pins out, we'll cut our seams. Then we're going to turn this right side out and take a look and see how our sleeves look. Don't want to miss any pins. All right, we've got all the pins. Let's go ahead and turn this right side out and see how we did. All right, you can kind of see. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and put our collar pieces in. And I went ahead and hand stitched or hand sketched a collar because this pattern doesn't come with the collar because I want to match the little doll dress. And then after that, we are going to add a high waist also to match our little doll dress. And then we'll be ready to do some hemming on the bottom. So we're very close to being finished on this. Let's go ahead and pin. Well, let's go ahead and make our collar piece. So we have these two pieces here, and we have the right sides together. We're going to go ahead and sew around the outside edge, leaving this end open. We go forward and backwards to tie up our seam, and just carefully go around the outside edge, keeping the same size hem or seam allowance. And let's go ahead and make a few clips here on the curved areas. Just makes it easier when you turn this right side out for everything to lay properly. And then in here, oh, it's good to see we have somebody that's joined us. Thanks for joining. And I have my little purple thingy here someplace. Here we go. This thing is a great tool. Just helps you to turn this right side out and get all the edges pushed out. Just makes it a little easier. Sometimes that can be a little tedious. There we go, we're making some progress here. This is actually much easier than some things. You have to be really careful when you make tie straps not to make them too narrow. All right, so this is one collar piece that we have. Let's go ahead and sew the other one. Be consistent with your hem size, your seam allowance. You want both of your collar pieces to be the same size, right? So be careful about that. Trim our threads, get rid of the pins. Go ahead and do a little clipping on the corners, being careful not to cut all the way through. Just makes it easier when you turn it to push those seams out. This is our second collar piece. And get our purple thingy. I bet you whoever came up with this idea is a millionaire, right? So in other words, you'd be using a crochet hook, a pencil, eraser, any number of objects. This one works just fabulous. All right, so we have our second collar piece. So the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to lightly tuck these edges in, right? You just kind of have to feel it and get it so that we can close this like that. And we're going to do a seam on the very edge. see if we caught both sides. It always seems to take a little bit for my feed dogs to catch the fabric when I'm sewing an edge like that. All right, let's do the other one. Just tucking it in, kind of using surface tension to help me to get it to fold over to an equal distance. Then I line it up like this, and then I put it on my machine and sew it. Trim our threads. Now we're ready to pin the collar to the dress. And so you'll basically be measuring to make sure that you're lining up with the center of the front and then also the shoulder seams. And let's see here. I think I like this side better over here. If it's like this, it would be like that. Just get your bearings. Okay. So one way you can do it is you can start with your side seam and pin it to that, or see if it lines up. Before you pin it, just put it on there and then just kind of see. I think we'll actually start in the middle this time. Okay. So we're going to pin it to the inside and sew it along the edge of the collar. And then we're going to flip it and then sew it again on the outside edge. And before we sew, we'll just double check and make sure it looks like it's even. All right, so I'm going to check to make sure we're at equal distance from the shoulder seams, right? That we're in the middle looks right. So let's go ahead and sew this. And we're just going to sew on the very edge. And just stay really close to the edge of the collar. Or should I say the neckline. Backspace here at the middle, and then we'll continue going forward. Go backwards again, and then continue going forwards. Just like to really secure that really well and make sure it doesn't come off. just going around the neckline, staying right on the edge. And then reverse and forward to tie it off. Remove our pins. Trim our seams. Now we're ready to turn our collar to the right side. See how easy it is, just like this? And we're going to go ahead and pin that, and we're going to do another seam right along here to hold it in place. And just make sure you fold it over. You want an equal amount on both sides showing, right? You want your collar pieces to be the same size. I'm actually using a white fabric that has a very delicate floral pattern, not very pronounced, which I just think it makes it look a little cuter, a little more doll-like. For our living dolls, you can see how this contrast in color for the collar really adds a lot to the garment. All right, so you can see how we have that on here. Now we're just going to go ahead and do a seam along here, and then their collar will be finished. So it's really coming together. It's going to be so cute. We're just going to stay very close to the neckline. We're basically just sewing this so that it stays in place. When I get to the center, I'm going to reverse and go forward again and continue sewing to the next collar piece. And reverse, and then continue sewing. And then reverse and forward to tie it off. You can see how our dress is starting to take some shape. We have our cute little collar, our cute little sleeves. Now we're ready to add our waistband. And for that, we have the same fabric as we used on the collar and on the sleeve trims. And we're going to go ahead and put the right sides together. And we're just going to stitch down this length. And I'm just going to pin it in a few places to make sure it stays even. And it doesn't look like we have a whole lot of participation tonight. So I think we'll go ahead and end this live stream here, and then we'll be back to do the waistline at another time. If you join us later, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.